Welcome back, everyone, to the T.R.O.N podcast, The Randomness of Nothing. This is your host, Rashad Woods. Today, I have a very special guest today, the definition of an American success story from Ethiopia, Ms. Zed Wondemu. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and it's an honor to have someone with your compelling story on here, and your background is obviously very compelling, and you're living, breathing embodiment of the American dream. So please tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my name is Zed Wondemu. I have been in this country for 55 years plus. I came when I was young. I came for education. I finished 11th and 12th grade in this country. And now, of course, I went to college and, I paid my dues. And after working for a private company and also for different universities, I opened a restaurant in
Yes.
Georgetown. And that's where, after 23 years of my service and contribution to the system, and I was surprised.
Yeah, I'll never blindside anybody. Obviously, you talked about that in your book, and that's the situation that occurred. So, from the very beginning, what compelled you to come to America, right? So, here you are. Like, was it a family? What ultimately drove you to really take that leap of faith?
Yeah, back then, I came here in 1969 in Ethiopia. Usually, we follow our friends. My friend went to England for education, so it was kind of style, you can
Right.
say, or status symbol
Yeah.
for some people, so for some family members to send their kids to another country, to European country or to America for education.
Got it. So, I was born in America, so, right, we look at, sometimes we don't see the glitz and glamour of what other places could see about that particular perspective. So, you come over in 1969, and then, so did you go straight to Virginia from there?
Yeah, I came in 1969 from England. I left early to go to England, and I didn't like England. I stayed in England for 6 months for education, and I found a friend of mine found me an American family here in Seabrook, Maryland, and I stayed with them and went to a high school.
Oh, wow. So, you came over to stay with another family. Like, so it was that's incredible. So how did that navigate that particular avenue of your life? Because I didn't grow up with anybody but my parents. So here you go, hop two countries, and then you're staying with another family. Was there language, cultural barriers, or anything like that?
Not a whole lot. I spoke English before I came to this country, even though I wasn't perfect, but I tried.
Right.
So the family members, was just paying $40 a month to rent a basement from them and to go to school. But they were very nice people, and I didn't have any problems. I really enjoyed my experience with the American family.
Nice. So after you graduate from high school and you come over in 11th and 12th grade, so that's a very small window to really get a chance to meet people, integrate yourself, and then go straight to college, right? You hear stories about people who come over as small children that are more integrated inside of, either an educational system or a neighborhood. So you come over 16, 17, 18 years old. So you quickly have to go to university after that. So how did that transpire for you?
Well, upon graduation from the high school, and my counselor decided I didn't know much about different universities and colleges. I wasn't exposed since I was coming from another country. But the counselor of the high school decided to pick Bowie State University, Bowie State College.
Okay.
It was college back then.
Right.
So he chose that college for me, and I just went there, and I'm glad it was a good choice.
Right. In my experience, because I went to college, I went to Michigan State University. What I found out when I was on campus, obviously, like, you're kind of insulated from the rest of the world. Like, life goes on outside of a college campus while you're really on it. So you're on college campus, and this is actually, you just came over to America previously, just a few years ago. What did you study? What courses did you familiarize yourself with? And what was it like suddenly being thrust into that environment?
Well, the counselors and everybody, the teachers, they were very, very nice. Towards foreign students back then, and we really didn't have any problems. They're very helpful. They helped us to adjust. Of course, I was planning to study pharmacy. That was my plan, but I decided to change my major to social work and psychology for my undergrad.
Okay. Fantastic. And so, did you go into that field right away post graduation, or did you do another field of work while you were still trying to get into that?
No, I finished my college, and I got my BS degree in psychology and
Hmm.
social work.
Right.
Then I was planning to go back to Ethiopia. That was the plan,
Mhm.
because I came here as a student with
Right.
F1 visa. It
Hmm.
wasn't my intention to stay here after my education.
Right.
But the government in Ethiopia changed from, it was a socialist and communist military type of government.
Right.
Because of that change, it was very hard for me to go back, because I was educated here in American system from
Right.
capitalist system, and I stayed here.
I read about that in your excerpt that the country changed while you were on American soil. So that had to have been,
Right.
a very, very, I can only imagine what it must have been like. You're over here, and then you're hearing about that. How did that message get resonated from overseas to you? Were you hearing from family members? Messages resonate quickly, obviously, with the digital era we live in now. But how did you get that information in real time that was all taking place?
Yeah. Well, I was ready to go back, and I packed my luggages. I had two, three luggages packed, ready to go, and
Yeah.
I had to call home to get airplane ticket in order to go back. So when I was talking to them, they
Yeah.
told me, "Oh, no, no, the country is not in a good shape, so just wait for a
Yeah.
few weeks."
Yeah.
And then I waited for a few weeks, and I called back, and my mother told me, "Don't even think about it."
Oh my
Don't.
goodness. Yeah. So a week turns into months, months turns into years, and next thing you know,
Exactly.
yeah, you're here the rest of your life. It's I just was curious about that because I'm like, it's not like it would necessarily be on the nightly news, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly, exactly. That's exactly what happened.
oh my god, yeah, that's a heck of a phone call to take too. By the way, that's a lot to stomach. So obviously, we're going to talk about your book, but I mean, it's not often I get a chance to talk to somebody who came from Ethiopia, went to England, came to the States. So I want to fill in the gaps a little bit of what you did in between then. So it's your story, not mine. What happened after you're in social work and post graduation?
Well, since I didn't go back home, now I'm stranded. I don't get money from Ethiopia anymore,
Oh my
and I
goodness!
don't have a work permit because I was on student visa. So I
Wow.
had to go back to the university president, Dr. Samuel Myers, and I just went to his office and I told him I'm stranded and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I need a job. And he used to work for State Department. He was very much aware of the political environment
Yeah.
for
Wow.
Africa and Ethiopia back then. So he was very, very understanding, and he decided to give me a job.
See what happens when you just ask in life, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, he told me to come back after a while. He didn't give me the job right away.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
he told me to come back after 1 month, and
Yeah.
I went back after 1 month. Sure enough, he created a job for me.
Beautiful.
It wasn't even a
Beautiful.
position. He created one for me, and I'm still
Wow.
grateful. And then
Right.
because of that, I that gave me a chance, since I was working for the president office. That gave
Unbelievable.
me a chance to go to graduate school. I'm lucky.
Yeah, because just to make that up, like here you are, having all these events that are taking back home, and you're like, I got one or two options here. I can either, dwell on my own sadness, or I can take a chance at the place that I'm already at. So, and you're by yourself while doing that, not having anybody advocating for you as well. So, there's a lot of things that, it took a lot of pride and a lot of self reflection to be able to take that request. Not a lot of people would do that, So
Right.
very proud of you. And how did you get ultimately into, the restaurant industry? When I looked you up, I saw you met a lot of prominent people. I'm looking through the chapters of your book and I'm like, the pictures you took with people and the experiences that you had. And then we could talk about your book obviously as well too.
Okay. Well, after working for the president for Bowie State University, uh, kind of completed his assignment, so I had to be transferred to the library, the Bowie
Hmm.
State University Library. So I worked there for two years, but I was kind of tired of that, so I decided to find a job with a private company. I did, and I was working for a private company. After that, I was ambitious and also restless. I was young and ambitious and restless.
Right.
While I was working for the Great West Life insurance company, I decided to open small gift shops on the side.
Okay.
And then
Nice.
after that, I this chance came from a friend of mine to open a restaurant together.
Hmm.
So that's what I did. I opened the restaurant with a
And
colleague.
that's fantastic. And so let's talk about the restaurant industry. That you ran. Was it Ethiopian food? What was the clientele based life, and how was the experience of running that restaurant?
Well, I opened the restaurant in 1988, and Ethiopian food back then wasn't really popular. Nobody
Yeah.
knew, not
Right.
not a whole lot.
Right. Right.
So the first thing I had to do was I was struggling to
Hmm.
educate the environment, and I was in Georgetown also. It's a very tough area, and
Okay.
that took me a long. But I was determined to do it. I was doing a lot of advertisement. Also, I had to do a lot of education. I had to educate a lot of people, and also I had association with Georgetown University and George Washington University. The
Yes.
students helped
Fantastic.
for the first 2 3 years.
Well, it's because we look at things. Obviously, where the restaurant industry is already tough enough as it is because it's competitive and very few of them, succeed long term. And so, one of the things is that when you have a market as specialty as that, eventually, when you get those foot in the door and people are starting to you get an established clientele base and they're experiencing food that they haven't had a chance to before. Now you have some momentum where there's more people that are coming in who haven't experienced this. How was your staff? What was the clientele based life? And how did that go about?
As I stated, it was difficult for the first 3 years. I was really struggling, and I was planning to do it on the side while I was working for Great West Life, but that
Hmm.
was impossible. And I didn't
Oh my
have
goodness.
a restaurant experience, so I had to start everything from scratch. And I
Right.
had to train the waitresses and the hostess.
Well, without previous experience too. That's
Yeah, since I was, my degree in graduate school was education,
Mhm.
so I was kind of trained to educate people. So I
Right.
kind of trained my staff very well, and that's how I started. I started everything from scratch, you can say.
I
The
was waiting.
advertising, the
Yeah.
marketing, the promotion, training my staff members, and training myself.
I was waiting for the part where you actually like had restaurant experience before you started a restaurant because I was like, okay, well, clearly she must have had that to be able to because that most people do in order to actually be able to do something like that. So the fact that you did, man, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I didn't have any experience, unfortunately.
So, what inspired you to write the book? You have a lot of details about your life in there. You talk about your late husband. You talk about what you went through as in your immigrant experience. I'm only getting the surface level of what you went through. And so, how did you actually? What inspired you to write the book? And what trials did you have to go through that inspired you to write it? Slanted Justice.
Yeah, to make the long story short, as I said, I was working in the restaurant business for a long time, close to when this happened, close to 21 or 22 years, something like that. And all of a sudden, they were claiming they are from IRS, and they came to my house, and they decided to raid my house, and also they decided to raid the restaurant at the same time. And I was expecting, like, even if it is a IRS issue, I was expecting to be audited, and
Right.
because of that, they put me through hell, you can say. And I was investigated for 5 years, as you read in the book. To make the long story short, they came up for 4 years error or whatever they decided to claim
Mhm.
it. After 5 years investigation, they came up with $50,000 in 4 years. So the punishment or the investigation and the injustice really doesn't match with the amount of money they even found when they looked under microscope.
Right. Right. Right.
Naturally, when they investigate, they look at you through a microscope.
Oh,
So
for sure.
even after looking through the microscope,
Mhm.
in 4 years' time, they came up with $50,000. Even the judge was really surprised, as you read it in the book,
Yeah, I saw that. I saw
for
that.
them to investigating me for 5 years in order to come up with $50,000.
You know what was. I don't obviously haven't had that type of experience, but the stress of that, to be able to navigate that, and you read things sometimes on the internet, but you get a chance to talk to people too. So when you see that, how does the reality of what you went through not necessarily match or not match what actually really took place? Because a narrative can be given about, oh, this person, either pleaded guilty, but then you talk about, hey, I didn't have proper representation, and the person was just basically say, plead right away, plead right away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how does the narrative not match the reality, so to speak, of a situation like that? I want to be very sensitive to what you went through.
Yeah, it was a big trauma. Psychologically, it affected me for a long time. In
Right.
addition to that, because of the stress, I had a stroke.
Oh my
And
goodness.
when I was going to the courtroom, I was using a cane because of my stroke. So my
Hmm.
thinking pattern wasn't really as good as before.
Right.
So because of that, my health stress and financial stress, and I lost my husband in 2012,
Yeah. Right.
and I had all this
My
personal
condolences.
issues, health issues. It was a big trauma, and I didn't expect in America. I didn't expect this kind of, because I claimed to be. I worked hard, and I was working since I was 19 years old, and I went to
Right.
school. I paid my dues. I had a very expensive accountants all these
Mhm.
years.
Yeah.
Even if they had issues with me, they would have audited me.
Right.
I don't have to
Right.
go through. I'm not a Microsoft, or I'm not IBM. I'm not a big
Yeah.
company
Right.
for them to go to investigate for 5 years. Really, honestly, it's not. It wasn't fair.
Yeah, and so and that's kind of one of those ones where all I saw was what I saw, and I wanted to that was, and it's your story to tell, not mine. So it was very important to be able to hear that from you, because when I was reading some of the excerpts in there, oftentimes people are. I mean, the federal government is the federal government. I mean, it's a beast of a and it's not something you want to be in the crosshairs of when it comes time to defend yourself in any level of anything, right? So how are you doing post that? How did you get through that? And after that, you wrote a book, because your story is so unique when it comes to, African immigrant, came here, did a restaurant, became successful, a little no money, and ultimately still persevered on the other side.
Well, I can say, I believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
I have faith, and while I was going through that, I depended with. I really, I was praying every day, and I was kind of protected. I can say defended by
Right.
God, even
Yeah.
though I didn't have a real defense. So I can say, the bottom line is, I can say, I really got the energy, the
Mhm.
protection. I can say from my faith, from my God.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You talk deeply, obviously, about the immigrant experience. Like, how is that different now from what people like? My wife's from Canada, so we had to. I mean, just from across the water. So, like, just to be able to go through that took 12 to 16 months. What was the process like back then, getting processed, immigration wise? Like, what process did people have to go through back in 1969, 70?
America was a good country. It still is. is, but with
Absolutely.
with whatever difficulties we have now. As a student, with a student visa, I don't have any problems.
Okay.
It was a good experience. I mean, people
Yeah.
treated us as a human being. Of course, here and there, you see that discrimination, but we didn't care. I mean, I didn't
Right.
care about it until it comes boldly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, the beauty, like when you say, it's, we're a great country. I mean, the living proof is like this podcast of mine, right? So I never got a chance to experience people such as yourself until I did something like this. And then you read documentaries about places where people can't even do what we're doing right now. I mean,
Right.
watch documentaries. You look at places like North Korea, right? And you're like you got it doesn't even seem real, like you can't even begin to fathom, like when these people go hungry, they have to eat tree bark or they have to eat dirt, and then you see people who actually made it out of there, and then you see images that they have to do idolatry worship of the people that run the country, and you're just like, this can't be real, this just
Mm,
can't be real. And so anything that could be improved upon is still better than a lot of places, right? And so
exactly.
and so you talked about the judge specifically in your book and the sympathetic judge that had before you. And I'm very glad that you are obviously here to talk about your experience. What was that experience like, particularly with a judge? Because I have to imagine that was your first experience in the legal system in that regard.
Yeah, after 5 years of struggle and stress, emotional crisis, and trauma, and physical and mental sickness, really, honestly. And
Right.
the judge was really, I found her to be very fair, and she didn't even want me to say guilty. She gave me a chance to reverse that,
Okay.
but I was warned by the lawyer not
Right.
to say that, not
Right.
to sound wishy-washy, to
Right.
proceed with the original plan.
Right.
So I was so scared not to say I'm not guilty, which I wasn't guilty, honestly. At the same time, I decided to get rid of them by negotiating with them, by doing plea bargain. I thought they're going to go away from my
Yeah.
life because it
Yes.
was a very difficult situation. So even though I didn't win in a regular sense, because of the fact that she understood me in the
Right.
courtroom,
Right.
she really felt it. I thought, I thought when I left the courtroom, I thought I won. In
Right.
reality, I
Right.
didn't.
But it was something you could put behind you at least, right? So
Right.
if you put a silver lining to a situation like that, and again, I read about it and I knew that you talked about it in your book, but I've had other guests on here who have had things that happened in the past to them, and I never like to bombard people. This is not the gotcha show where suddenly I'm going to bring that up on you because that's disingenuous and that's unfair. So the fact that you brought that up and you're open to talk about it, I appreciate that because that's not what I do on this show. That's not
Thank
fair
you.
to somebody to put somebody on there and put them on the spot about something like that. So,
Thank you.
of course, of course. And so, what are you doing right now? How did you, it's that's a couple years past you. So, where are you at now?
I work as a consultant,
Okay,
and I do volunteer work for nonprofit organizations, and I help people who try to start businesses, small businesses.
nice.
And I go to church and I read and
Yeah.
I write.
Do you find more like, and I say this respectfully, are there more immigrants that are reaching out to you trying to start businesses, or people born in the states? Like, what
Both,
gravitates more towards? Okay, okay,
both.
nice. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and I don't mind helping because people helped me while I was, in this country. So I don't mind giving back. I enjoy helping
Right.
people.
Yeah, I just didn't know that there, if there was an Ethiopian community or an African community, that was like, okay, I'm going to gravitate towards Zed because, maybe my parents saw her, in a restaurant as a kid, and or she lives in my neighborhood, and we all, and I say that sensitively just because sometimes people gravitate in their own respective communities when it comes to success and reaching out and be able to help one another. So that's wonderful. You're helping everybody.
Yeah, anybody who comes along who wants
Right.
help from me, I'm
Yeah.
happy to help.
That's a fantastic. So where can we find your book? And I saw it on Amazon. And tell us where people can find you now, please.
Okay, Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and Google Books.
Right.
Yes.
This seems like a very compelling TV movie or something that I need to like. It seems like a story that needs to be like pitched almost, right? Because it's so compelling. You have, you from coming from overseas to another country, you know, by yourself. It's a classic immigrant story of success, trials, tribulations, the legal system, and you did this all by yourself. Obviously, you've gotten married and everything like that. And my condolences for your loss of your husband. But it seems like have you ever had this like try to get pitched or like had your story told on a greater scale, or is the book the first step?
Oh, this is the book. Believe it or not, I was silent for a long time. This incident happened in 2014, and I just finished writing the book.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
And I tried, not to say much, but I decided to tell my own story because I don't want to be defined by their story.
Right, right.
I don't want them to validate Z or define Z. And I decided to say, even though after how many years, I decided to tell my own story. Yeah, because that's the truth.
Right, and at the end of the day, when you do an internet search, you want to sit back and say, "No, this is the experience of me, not what this headline or byline says about me." Right?
That's exactly right. That's
Of
exactly
course,
right.
of course. And so, this is what the Tron podcast is all about. Like, I would normally, your zip code is not reflective of the entire world. The street you drive on is not your entire world. And the reason I did this show and continue to do it is to talk to people from different walks of life, experiences, so people can hear messages and be inspired by others. You had some highs and some lows, but you came out on the other side, and now you're here to tell your story. And I want to thank you, and I appreciate you taking time out to talk to me.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Zed Wondemu, and I really appreciate your time on the T.R.O.N podcast, the randomness of nothing. Talk to you
Thank
soon,
you,
okay?
sir. Thank you very much.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.